Hi, I'm Jalen Rose, and welcome to the Renaissance Man podcast, proudly presented by the New York Post, a show where we cover trends in fashion, entertainment, current events, and everything in between. For my next guest, get your popcorn ready. Not only is he one of the greatest receivers and players in the history of the NFL, he's a Hall of Famer that played 16 seasons, made 6 Pro Bowls, 5-time first team All Pro. I didn't stutter. 5-time first team All Pro. He's an entrepreneur. He's going to tell you about a restaurant and so many projects he has going on. A philanthropist, represents the HBCUs to the fullest. And I can't wait to let you guys know that we're going to be making moves very soon and changing the game. It is my honor to welcome the legendary Terrell T.O. Owens to the show. What up, family?
What's up, dog? Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you having me. And the most important thing I like about this is you got my name right. You got my name right.
No doubt. I got you. No question. And for those that followed this show, we've done around 175 episodes. I've probably had maybe 3 to 5 athletes on. Today is extremely special because this gentleman's story is so very unique. And when I learned a lot about his story, it was just mind-blowing. I know you grew up in Alabama. Mm-hmm. Tell me what your childhood was like there.
Oh, man, small town, Alexander City, Alabama. At one point in time, Russell Corporation, Russell Athletic, that was the textile mill. That was the industry that was there that did a lot of manufacturing. When you talk about what everybody wears today, from hoodies, T-shirts, mesh jerseys, anything, any athletic apparel, Russell Athletic was the thing. Everybody, they made everything across the board. T-shirts, everything. They made it for MLB back in the day, all the high school, college jerseys, uniforms, everything. Then obviously times have changed, manufacturing, they start mass producing, overseas, and that basically pretty much wiped Russell Corporation out of the water. So I didn't really know that growing up until I got older, but pretty much maybe I'm in a small town, relatively speaking. Maybe right now we're at like maybe 14 knocking at the door, maybe 15,000 people in that town, relatively small. And back in the day, probably it was like 17,000. Then once, Russell Corporation left, a lot of people, a lot of jobs left. I didn't understand what that all meant until later on. But yeah, raised by my grandmama and my mom. Again, I owe everything really to my mom and my grandmama. They pretty much they were my mom and my dad. So my grandmama raised me. She passed in 2012 to Alzheimer's. She succumbed to the disease. I didn't know who my dad was until preteen, anywhere from like 10 to 12. I found out who my dad was. And the most shocking thing about it, people that know me, that's read my book, I found out who my dad was, and he lived right across the street from me, basically in walking distance. So I saw the guy every day. The kids that I thought was just friends, girls in the neighborhood, they turned out to be my sister, my sister. So again, not the conventional way of growing up, an ideal way of growing up. But at the end of the day, it made me who I am today. Anybody that has followed my story, if they watched OWN Network, they followed Inyala Benzant's show, Fix My Life. I did a story on that. About my dad and my mom, how that dynamic came about. But at the end of the day, man, I didn't allow those things to deter who I was, who I became. And I was just a normal kid growing up in a neighborhood that loved sports. I played pretty much everything. Growing up in the South, Jalen, you played with a number of athletes.
Yep.
Growing up how you grew up, that's all we knew is sports. And so for me, I was no different. I was just a preteen, become a teenager, wanted to play a lot of sports. I played baseball, basketball, ran track. Obviously, I played football. But I never knew that I was going to eventually become a Hall of Famer. That was never really on my radar. I wanted to be a basketball player. I wanted to be part of part of the Fab Five. You know what I mean? I no lie. I mean, everybody knew about the baggy shorts, the
No
black
doubt.
socks, the black shoes, which I couldn't afford. But those are some of the things. Those are some of the things that I remember up in. A lot of people don't know about me, but I owe a lot to my grandma and how I was raised. She grew up in that segregation era. When you talk about some of the social issues, social injustice issues that we faced over the last 3 to 5 years, she was talking about it, and I heard her talking about it to her friends way back when I was when I was young. So all these things have come full circle. And honestly, it's not really shocking because I heard her talk about how we as Black people were treated. You know, she told me about going to restaurants or having to go drink at a different water fountain where it was labeled Black, white. You know what I mean? So all these things, and even some of the things that I experienced as an athlete early on in my career and my professional career during the San Francisco days, there are some systemic racism things that I faced. I saw and I recognized, but I didn't make it an issue. Didn't really feel like I had the platform to really, raise those issues and really think it was going to really, anybody's going to pay attention to it. But at the end of the day, man, all those things kind of just groomed me to who I am and to where I've gotten.
Your intellect and your perseverance has been notable, and it's a story for so many people to follow. A lot of us grew up without our dads, like you, basically raised by a single parent and or my grandma. And a lot of times we lose our, what I call innocence early. And a lot of us, including myself, start drinking young, start smoking weed young. I hear that that's something that you never done. How did you avoid what other kids your age were doing to mask the pain that they were growing up in the same circumstances that you were exposed to?
My grandmama, she was strict. Anybody knows and grew up in a house with a grandmama, and if they told you not to do something or not to bring something into that house, you knew, you took that to heart. That was like the Bible. So, and even though she struggled with alcoholism, she was a God-fearing woman. Nobody is perfect, and I recognized that. I heard her talk to her friends about it, her church friends, her church goers, her brothers and sisters. I learned about church, I learned about faith, but I also learned discipline. I knew what growing up strict, and I knew what that was about. Now, how we were disciplined and how we were raised, they would lock her up and throw the key away. You talk about getting whooped, we call it whooping. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
There was no timeout. I don't know what that was. The only thing timeout, that was sports related. Bro, we got belts, we got switches. You go out and get a switch. That was a level of discipline. And honestly, like I said, it molded me into the person that I am today, to where I know the difference between right and wrong. Of course, being a teenager, you're gonna make mistakes along the way. You know what I mean? You're gonna do teenager things. But I saw what alcoholism did to my grandmama, so I didn't want to drink. You know what I mean? I never smoked weed in my entire life. But as time has changed, I understand the medicinal, advantages of that. You know what I mean? Now, like I said, weed is starting to be legal, or it is legal. So I understand the medicinal benefits of smoking weed. Do I condone other things, drugs, hard alcohol and drugs and things of that nature? Absolutely not. But if there are some ways to incorporate, legal, medicinal, depending on the amount that you're smoking, and an athlete can benefit from it, then why not? It's not a performance enhancing drug by any means. But again, to each their own. But my grandmama, again, is very instrumental into who I am. Again, like I said, we all know right from wrong. And as we grow from a teenager into adulthood, manhood, womanhood, or what have you, now you're responsible, and you know that there's consequences to your actions. But early on, I never really wanted to do any of that. And then I wasn't a great athlete when I grew up and when I came out of high school. Even I didn't even really think I was a great athlete coming out of college. I was a better athlete than I started,
Right.
but I never would have said that coming out. I was never a 4 or 5 star coming out of high school. I never leaving college. Never thought I would have been. Obviously, I wasn't a top 5 or top 10 draft pick,
Yep.
but I increased in my abilities. Which sports should you? If you go to school for 4 years, they present opportunities to you. You should be able to take advantage of those opportunities to where you should be better leaving than when you came in. And that's how I
Right.
was. I played 3 years basketball at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. As a matter of fact, we played Michigan at the Roundhouse.
Yep.
One of those years, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So again, like I said, I know we're talking about my grandmama and how I was raised, this and that and the other, and why I didn't do a little bit of some of those things. I've never been a big drinker. My first drink was in college. And
Wow.
it wasn't until like my sophomore, I think it's like maybe end of my freshman year or my sophomore, or beginning of my sophomore year, because I just felt and thought and saw how smoking,
Yep.
drinking, all of that affects your ability. And for me, I already knew I didn't have the greatest ability anyway. So why would I do something to
Right.
deter or prevent me from
Right.
becoming a better athlete?
Right. Who were your favorite athletes growing up and why?
Michael Jordan. I mean, my grandmother was very, very strict, bro. I very seldom got to watch any sports, any TV. The only TV shows that I got to watch was Golden Girls, the Bill Cosby Show,
Classics.
right? And religiously we watched Wheel of Fortune
Yeah.
with Vanna White and Pat
Pat
Sajak.
Sajak. Yeah.
So occasionally we watched Jeopardy, but those 3 shows, like that's all I really could watch. And then when I did get to watch sports outside of, Alabama football or anything like that, I went across the street before I even knew who my dad was. I was going across the street watching basketball. I was watching the Showtime Lakers play and the Detroit Pistons and Chicago Bulls. That's when I got a chance to really watch NBA basketball. So
Right.
I fell in love with what everybody else fell in love with greatness when they saw Michael Jordan do his thing on the court. His talent just stood out amongst amongst the rest, amongst the best. So Michael Jordan was really, like I said, I wanted to be just like every kid in America. I wanted to be like Mike.
Wow. And like many kids in America, especially that look like us, that grow up in an environment of poverty, when we don't have a father in the home, what kind of shadow that may or may not play. For me, my father was a former professional athlete, but I never knew him. And so his shadow to me was carrying around his basketball card and people telling me stories about him. But I resented it because I didn't know him and I felt like he was an NBA player and he neglected me. What was that shadow like for you, knowing that your father literally lived across the street?
Honestly, Jalen, I guess being a young kid, I really didn't comprehend what I was missing, because my grandmama and my mama, they made up for what I didn't have in a father figure. So it wasn't like I felt and saw that I was missing something. And again, I understood that, yeah, we all have mom and dad. That's how we got here.
Yep.
I had my uncle or what have you. But again, it just never really occurred to me that I was being raised and I was growing up without a father in the household. He never came to any of my high school games or college games from my recollection. If
Wow.
anything, maybe one, if that, and that's a stretch. And the same with my mama. My mama, she didn't really know that I was going to be or become the athlete that I come. She didn't come to games. I guarantee you, my mom probably maybe went to maybe 1 or 2 games, if that, throughout my high school career.
Wow.
Because I wasn't I wasn't one of those guys those star guys that was on the team that people were
Right.
going to see and coaches evaluating, okay, this guy has talent to go to the next level. And again, I think the lack of affected me later on in my career. I love my kids to death, but I never had anybody to tell me about those conversations that we as dads should have with our son. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yep.
those are things like I said. And I'm a product of kind of what he had going on. He had 4 daughters at the time. You know what I mean? He was married. So obviously there was some infidelity, those things going on. Like I said, but at the end of the day, I didn't really harp as I grew up, and even as I understood the dynamic of what had transpired throughout my life, I never thought bad of it.
The amazing thing that I'm going to make sure people continue to highlight is there are very few athletes in the NBA or the NFL that play Division I football and basketball while they're in college.
Right.
If you get a chance, everybody out there, do the list. It's very, very few people that have the athletic ability, the discipline to be able to do both. And you mentioned getting drafted by the 49ers. In your case, there was an agent, Jerry Rice. Steve Young was the quarterback. It's a historic franchise. What was it like for you coming in and trying to make a name for yourself and ultimately doing so immediately?
Again, it was pretty synonymous with, how I approached, my first 4 years in college. Just really just wanted to come in and, given the opportunity to better myself as an athlete. Again, Jalen, like I said, I'm 23, 24, 25. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was really raw green. I didn't play at a Power 5 school, so I didn't play with the level of competition that a lot of these top 5, 10, 15, 20 guys, played against. And then throughout the course of the league, I didn't play against that type of talent. So it was almost like I was a science project. And this was really kind of the era where the big receivers we were premium athletes. We were kind of anomaly, you know what I mean? Like this is what teams wanted, was the 6'2", 6'3", rangy type of receiver. So we were considered, when I was drafted, I was considered prototypical based on what the receivers were, how they were playing in the league around that time. When you think about the Haywood Jeffries, the Herman Moores, obviously the Jerry Rice, the J.J. Stokes, the Jake Reeds. And at the time when I'm being drafted, Randy Moss, the 6 feet, and above type of players, the physical attributes that made up that was on the field at the time. So again, that's how I end up coming up with my clothing line, Prototype 81, because I'm like, okay, I became the prototype for what NFL teams were looking for as receivers. So when I came in, I just wanted to number one, I didn't want to disappoint my family, because for me, that was the most money that I had ever seen, my family had ever seen, probably, all together. So just to have that opportunity to play at one of the most historic franchises in NFL history, in the San Francisco 49ers, and then, a couple years prior to that, Super Bowl champions, I just wanted to come in and not disappoint. I just wanted to get better. And I owe a lot to my coaches, Larry Kirksey, George Stewart. They were instrumental in the development of what people know now as TO. They get your popcorn ready, all that stuff. That confidence that I had, sometimes that was a defense mechanism, because I needed that. I needed to put myself in a position like, okay, how can I be like Jerry? You know what I mean? Then I had to be a realist. I'm like, I'm not, we don't have the same body type. I can't be Jerry, but I have some of his physical attributes. I have some of his ability, but I have to become my own person and develop my own skill set. And once I started to tap into that after that third year, after I made that catch against Green Bay, that wasn't, and like I said, it wasn't the most ideal situation for me to really realize, okay, I got the talent to make that next step. Because anybody has watched that Green Bay wildcard game, it wasn't the best day for me. But it's not hard, and it's cliche. And I tell people, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I finished that game with one of the most historic catches in NFL history, and we beat the Green Bay Packers.
And for those that follow this lifestyle and leisure podcast, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, his name is Joe Montana. The catch one was to Dwight Clark in the back of the end zone as the 49ers won the Super Bowl. The catch two is Steve Young to Terrell Owens. And by the way, you hung onto the football. It was a game-winning touchdown, and you got stuck.
Oh yeah, they put the, like, in any type of situation like that. I mean, when you catch the ball over the middle between two safeties, they put a lick on me that obviously, like, probably your average receiver
Correct
would have coughed the ball up. But again, as that announcer said, when I made that catch, I hadn't caught on to anything all day, let alone held on to my fingers, but I held on to that rock. At that time, like I said, it was, like I said, Steve Young couldn't have put it in a more perfect spot. And you think about I look at how that game unfolded. For me, a young budding star, Steve Young having Jerry Rice on the other side, Jalen playing basketball.
No doubt.
When the clock is running down, who do you give the ball
Getting
to?
it to Jordan, giving it to Rice every time.
Right. You're putting the ball in your best player's hand. So I think that's so iconic to think about, when he had Jerry Rice on the field, but he didn't get away from his principle. It's all about, like what LeBron says all the time, making the right play, not forcing something. In this situation, this was very LeBron-esque, because Steve Young, he made the right play based on the defense that we had been given, and they were had given us at that time, and he threw the ball where nobody could get it but me. And so I made the catch. And so again, that'll always probably that was the stepping stone, for my career.
Another game I want to remind you of, you have so many. By the way, guys, we could go down memory lane about T.O.'s touchdown catches. He ran the entire route tree. That's when you say a prototype, not only did you have the size to go across the middle and block, but you also had the speed to go deep and magical hands. Tell me about the game you torched Chicago and caught for 20 passes for like 280 yards, the NFL record.
Again, it was a game going in. We knew that this was going to be Jerry Rice's last home game, right before the crowd. So again, it's almost like, obviously sending a farewell, the farewell, the send off of one of your greats or what have you. So, it's like, okay, just like how Kobe went out, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You have things designed up, you want to go out on a high note. And so that's essentially, as a team, as players, we wanted the same thing for Jerry. We always have, some teams that have the scripted first 15 or what have you. Probably out of that first scripted 15, probably 13 or 14 of those plays was going to Jerry. But guess who else knew that as well? The Chicago Bears, the defensive players, the defensive secondary. They have pride. They have a sense of pride too. So they knew what was going on. You don't want to be the receiving end of somebody's historic day. I know you can attest to that.
No doubt. 81 times.
Right.
When you go against greatness, it happened.
Right. So my point in saying all that was that, like, hey, I was willing and understanding to take a backseat. Okay, this is my guy. You know what I mean? Some of the things that I've learned, obviously we had the work ethic, but I saw him lead on an everyday basis. I saw what made, I understand, and I saw what made him great. And so why not, like, paying homage to one of the greatest to play the game? But again, it didn't unfold like he wanted to. It was like, I think a lot of times, I think we forced the issue. They played a lot of cover two. They bracketed him, and as a number, as a Robin to the Batman, I was on the receiving end of those double team coverages and those single matchups, and that was a testament for me as a player, is to make sure that I pick up the slack. You know what I mean? And so that was the emergence of my skill set, my talent. That was the emergence of really kind of who I became, and the passing of the torch. Me trying to fill some very big shoes that Jerry Rice had done for so many years. So again, it was just one pass after another, man. I was just catching it, making something happen. Obviously, we wanted to win the game. And then, like I said, I think somebody came and went up to coach and they was like, yo, like I had like about 10 catches or so right before halftime. And then, got out of halftime and then, started the second half. Man, it's like I'm 12, 13, 14, 15. Then they told the coach, like, yo, he's approaching, a 50-year-old record at that time held by Tom Fears. They're like, yo, it was 18. And so it got to be like a 16th catch, 17th catch. Then I got to the 8th, I tied it. Then I broke it with 19. Then I caught another pass because I'm on the receiving end benefiting from obviously Jerry Rice, who was a number one at that time. And at this time, I had already, put in enough work to where, again, he was number one. I started to consider myself number 1A. It wasn't like a number two. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Even with JJ Stokes was looked to do what I did, was fill the shoes of one of the greatest of all time. JJ Stokes coming out of UCLA. They drafted him number one pick for the Niners at that time to do and replace the great Jerry Rice.
Right. And you ultimately went on to have the career that they wanted him to have. And your next stop was with the Eagles. You played in the Super Bowl with the Eagles and had a major injury that I would still be in the fetal position if I had that injury. But you found a way to come back and perform in the Super Bowl. What do you remember about playing in the Super Bowl?
Number one, I'll tell you, Jaden, like I said, I'm gonna bring my grandmama up a lot within this interview. She instilled faith. She allowed us to understand what that is. And faith to me and how and how it is in the Bible, in just a short version of it, faith is belief in something that doesn't seem possible. Outside of things that I did from a physical standpoint to become the athlete that I did, taking care of my body, from obviously my workouts, and then from a nutritional standpoint, obviously, making sure I had all the things necessary to become a better and greater athlete. Faith was number one. It was key. And then the other part is that the training staff that I had there, Rick Burkholder and his staff, Chris Peduzzi, Andy Sugarman, those three guys, dude, the confidence that I exuded and I brought to that team that year, it seemed like it just resonated throughout the building. So the confidence that I had in myself, they had the confidence in their abilities to be like, hey, this is a big hill to climb. The injury that I had sustained, high syndesmosis sprain, I had 2 screws in a plate placed in there. I tore all the ligaments in my ankle, and then I didn't find out till the next day after the game that I had broken my fibula.
Wow.
I knew that night. They just told me like, hey, go home, elevate it. You get an MRI and stuff the next day.
Wow.
I woke up. I reported them. I went back I went to the training room, and then we went to the radiologist. And they asked me obviously how I was feeling. I said, man, I said, dude, up by my knee. I said, I couldn't sleep. It was aching the entire night. Told the radiologist that. He basically, okay. He knew about the ankle. He said, all right, we're just going to x-ray, MRI the whole entire leg. Bro, found out I had a fracture in my fibula.
Wow.
From that day, it was 7 weeks to the Super Bowl. It was mid-December when that injury happened. For me, I thought, okay, I had the surgery immediately. Took me to Baltimore, Maryland, had the surgery. I'm thinking, okay, after the surgery, I'm gonna take a few days, just chill, then we're gonna get into rehab. Jalen, the very next day, rehab started. He basically told me, he said, yo, if you want to play in the Super Bowl, he said, this is what we need to get on it. They put together an aggressive rehab program, and we went after it. It was like I said, if I wanted to play in the Super Bowl, the opportunity, I have the chance, they said, this is what we need to do. I said, sign me up. Let's do it. Like I said, the next day, immediately, we were doing rehab, bro. And so even once the diagnosis of what everything had happened to my leg, my ankle, the doctor basically said, obviously leading up to, we played the remaining couple of games of the season. Now we into the playoff. We played 2 playoff games. We beat Atlanta for the NFC Championship game to propel ourselves to go to the Super Bowl. All the weeks leading up to that, like I said, I was doing rehab. I was progressively getting better. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I was moving around like I think week 4, which was unheard of. Prior to, we go back I'm running at probably like around week 5 or so, because I played in the Super Bowl. I guess I came back in like 6.5, 7 weeks. So just think the timeline of that and the injury that I had.
Wow.
There are guys that had the same injuries. They were out 3 to 4 months. They weren't even really
Literally.
walking. Yeah. So what I was doing was, bro, it was remarkable. It was mind-boggling. We went back to get a clearance from my doctor. We documented everything from um, treatment wise, anything that I did on the field wise. We recorded everything. The
That
doctor did
is
not believe what he was seeing. I waited into his office where he talked to the head trainer. He basically said, this is unbelievable. He said, there's by no stretch of imagination what I saw. He said, it's unbelievable. It's remarkable. But he said
wow.
his understanding with his background and his study of being a doctor, history of being a doctor, he could not go against what his studies told him, his education, to allow me to go out and play in a football game that I'm gonna be around some
Mhm.
violent guys. He's
Yep.
like, he would not medically clear me to play. So I had to sign a waiver to clear myself to play in the Super Bowl.
Wow. Really?
I had to sign a waiver to play
That's
in
the
the Super
fine
Bowl.
print that they don't talk much about.
And
You
when I
basically
mentioned that,
signed out your rights. Wow.
when I mentioned that one time, the organization, for whatever reason, they tried to deny it. And I said, why would I lie? Because there was a liability because the doctor didn't medically clear me. So if I went on that field against his clearance,
Right.
then somebody's going to be liable.
Right.
So I had to sign a waiver.
Because if you would have got injured, they would have tried to revoke your contract and blame it on you.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Talk about love for the game. And you did that for
Yep.
Philly. That's why Eagle fans appreciate and respect you helped leading them to the
What?
Super Bowl.
Right. You always hear the saying that, some guys are built different, this and that and the other. And I don't really, I like it to an extent, but I tell people I'm not built different. I am different.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It's always like there's always something about an individual that makes them different for whatever reason that may be. But for whatever reason, for me, when you talk about, like I said, some of the physical attributes of a receiver, and what makes up a prototypical type receiver, I'm prototype 81. So
No
when you
doubt.
think about that, what makes it up is hands, is vision, is what I call COD, which is change of direction. And I had a nose for the end zone, and obviously speed comes into play. That's what embodies a prototypical type receiver for me. Where if I had to assess, their comparisons of what I did, or receivers my size did, but when it comes to me, and I try to look at receivers that kind of emulate me, or there's some type of comparison, those are the things that I look at. Obviously, the hands, the vision,
Mm-hmm.
the change of direction. Obviously, for me, I had I know the toughness, a nose for the end zone. Those are, for me, are what makes up a prototypical type receivers. And it's almost like we're becoming extinct in a sense. We don't have many of those. And even if you do see those come through every now and then, the longevity, they don't last long.
Yep.
They'll be there the first few years or so, but then they taper off around 5 years, 5, 6, 7, or 8. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're not seeing any 10+ year receivers anymore.
That's a great point. So in Philly, the chatter is always loud in the media. And as a dynamic player yourself, a big personality, a future Hall of Famer, people gonna gravitate to you because you work hard. You already in the gym.
Blue collar.
You
I'm
already
just like
working
them.
hard. You ain't taking no days off. You signing waivers to play in the Super Bowl. So I know how that works. The other 52 guys basically gonna love you, and all the young guys gonna gravitate to you. But when you have a quarterback, in this case, like Donovan McNabb, who was there prior to you, I'll ask this. What was your relationship like with him before Philly, while you were in Philly, and what is it like now?
Before Philly, I mean, it was just, I knew he was a great quarterback, an African American quarterback, following in the footsteps of some of those that went before him. I knew that he was obviously a great talent. Their team was a great talent. Prior to me getting there, they had went to 4 NFC championships, and they never got past any of those NFC championships. So I just knew him from afar. And then I met him, obviously, like I said, when you win the NFC, the loser of the NFC championship coaches the Pro Bowl, which it's a good and a bad thing. You don't want to be coaching in the Pro Bowl. You want to be coaching in the Super Bowl. But that's kind of like the kind of honorable mention type of prize that the loser coaches the Pro Bowl. So being this, hold on, let me take this off. I had a call. Sorry about that. Being in the making some being in San Francisco and playing in Pro Bowls from San Francisco, making a Pro Bowl as a Niner. Again, like I said, that's where I got a chance to obviously play under Andy Reid, who was a coach at that time. Donovan, obviously, he made the Pro Bowl. Made the Pro Bowl because obviously, like I said, some of the older veterans guy, he was like I guess, alternate. Because some of the older guys, they didn't want to go bang their bodies up. They had been there, done that, like your Brett Favre's and those veterans. So he became, the starting quarterback. So I got a chance to play with him a little bit in the Pro Bowl. Now I'm with the Eagles. I go from San Fran. Now I'm playing with the Eagles. For me, an upgrading quarterback based on when you talk about pocket passers, a quarterback being able to throw every route, can be on the 2 or 3 yard line and throw some 50, 60-yard bombs. That's no discredit to Jeff Garcia, who I had. They're 2 different quarterbacks. The similarities that they had was they were good getting out of the pocket, the escapability, making plays with their feet. But one has a stronger arm than the other. You know what I mean? But they both have their pluses and minuses when it comes to their ability as quarterbacks. So now I'm with a quarterback that has a hose of an arm, and I got to take to that my first time in training camp. We break the huddle. There's a go route called. My body's so accustomed to getting balls thrown from, football passes thrown from Jeff Garcia to where like coming off the scrimmage line of scrimmage out of my stance, I don't have to be full speed. I can kind of be half, 3/4. If I see him throw it, I can go get it. And so that's that muscle memory that I had. So I did that with Donovan, and he threw the ball, and I thought I could go get it. Man, I almost tore my hamstring. Missed the ball. I come back to the huddle. My coach, David Kelly, my receiver coach at the time, I came back to the huddle. He goes, hey, he said, this 5 right here is different than the other 5 you had on the West Coast. He said, this 5 right here got a hold. He said, now you know. From that point on, I knew. From the line of scrimmage, I know I got to get on my horse.
That's dope.
Okay, and that was, like I said, that was the beginning of our chemistry, the rapport that we had. And obviously, like I said, along the way, it got off the tracks. And I'm gonna save a lot of that. I got a documentary coming up with Amazon. Next year. It's gonna be released next year. Getting ready to start shooting that. So I'm gonna save a little of the nuggets.
No doubt.
For the documentary. But again, like I said, our relationship took a major turn. For me, I thought it was repairable. I thought there was some reconciliation in there. But after, like I said, I met him after some years. I thought things were cool. He did an interview with this Master Ted, some untold stories, little platform, and then things resurfaced. It wasn't exactly the truth. They asked me my side of the story, and then, like I said, now it's like just a war of words. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna tell you what God like, and that ain't nothing but the truth. So for me, people in Philly, they appreciate me now because they didn't appreciate what was going on then, because the media drove the narrative. They told the stories that they wanted to tell. All these years, I haven't been able to tell my side of the story and what really kind of transpired. Some people have heard little bits and snippets, through that platform. But again, like I said, I got a lot of people lined up to help me with the documentary. And like I said, they come with a lot of credibility. So I'm looking forward to that.
Stay tuned. Get your popcorn ready. I love me some me. Amazon. I can't wait. That's going to be crazy. How about this? So just talking to you reminds me of your connection and your threads to the NFC East. So the Cowboys now have an elite defense. Dak Prescott under center. The Eagles just came back from going to the Super Bowl. My namesake nephew, Jalen Hurts, killing the game. The 49ers still trying to figure out what they're going to do at quarterback, but they got one of the best rosters in the NFL. Who wins the NFC East and who wins the NFC overall and makes it to the Super Bowl, and who comes out of the AFC to play them in the Super Bowl?
Oh, that's gonna be tough. Not really tough. You gotta go with trajectory. You gotta go with trending. The Eagles, they're trending in the right direction. Obviously, with the emergence of Jalen Hurts, I think the organization did the right thing by shoring up his contract. So that's not a looming issue, especially when they're on the cusp of possibly going back to Super Bowl. So that's not a distraction. I think that was great by management to do that. But again, they saw too just the elevation and the enhancement of his game over the years that the short time that he's been there. He's trending in the right direction. When you think about the NFC East, I think it's theirs to lose. They should come out of the NFC East. Everybody wants to talk about the Cowboys, this and that and the other. The Cowboys, they either got to put up or shut up. At this point, that should be their motto. We got to put up or we just need to shut up. All the talk about what they want to do or think they can do, all that they got years of all of that prior that they haven't lived up to. So now they just got to go, like they said, put it on wax. At this point, like, you should just put your head down and just play and let the play do the speaking for you. As far as, like I said, the Eagles, anybody else in that division, it doesn't matter. It's really maybe the Giants. They played well, but for me, I'm going with the Eagles to come out with the NFC East. Jalen obviously is trending in the right direction.
No doubt.
I think to give the Cowboy fans that may be watching a glimmer of hope, because you mentioned the defense, how stellar and stout they are. If they can play, like I say, just take that 2000 Baltimore Raven team. If they can play to that level defensively, and if Dak can play efficient as Trent Dilfer, who's not, I would say, not even on Dak's level, but Trent Dilfer played efficient. He didn't do anything spectacular. The defense wanted for him, but he made enough plays offensively for them to win the game. The defense got to keep people out of the end zone. If he can minimize his mistakes, those turnovers, if he can keep that into single digits, you don't really need to be that. If he can keep it around 5, maybe no more than 8 throughout the course of the season, and they can get some explosive plays out of their receivers and their running game, I'm gonna give them a chance. But I haven't seen that yet. It's not enough that I've seen to move that needle. Like I said, for them, they just got to shut up and just put up. Out of the AFC, I got to go with my guy Patrick Mahomes. You know what I mean?
Big Red.
But he got some people on his heel. You got the Buffalo Bills. You got the guy
Justin Herbert.
Justin Herbert with the Chargers. He got some talent over there. And Joe Burrows with the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
That
Joe
AFC,
Cool.
Hey, trust me, that AFC, I think it's gonna really come down to who's the healthiest at the end of the season. In totality, that's all teams. But out of those 4 AFC teams, it's stacked. It's stacked. There's a lot. It's hard to pick a fan favorite because, again, like I said, even with the Chiefs, they didn't win their game overwhelmingly. They didn't win the Super Bowl overwhelmingly. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna like I said, right, they're the favorite, you know, obviously, but they got some young guns, young teams, you know, in that AFC that's chomping on at the bits.
So when I recently saw you at DJ Khaled's golf event, when you walked away, our team, Dwight Freeney, Charles Oakley, we ran into Ed Reed. You immediately started them having a conversation of who's the greatest wide receiver of all time, because a couple of those people said you are. So it's only right because you're on the show, I ask you, including yourself, who are your top 5 receivers in the history of the NFL?
Oh man, I would say like in no order, but I'm always gonna pay homage to the greatest because he did it. You know what I mean? That's Jerry Rice. You know what I mean? And a lot of people, hold on, take this.
No doubt.
I gotta pay homage to Jerry Rice, but a lot of people that have watched his game, my game, and obviously the other guys that I'm going to mention, um, they can make some arguments as to why I could be like, I could be considered better than Jerry. I can see listening at them, talk and really create that argument, that debate. I can see what they're talking about. Obviously, he has the numbers, but if I would have been able to play another 3 to 4, 5 years, I would have been on his heels. And what I know that I could have done, I would have been threatening a lot of those records. But Jerry Rice, myself, Larry Fitzgerald, and obviously Randy Moss. My fifth, the fifth is always tough. The fifth is always tough. Calvin Johnson.
Megatron, my guy.
Detroit, you know what I mean? So, like I said, those five, like I said, not necessarily in that order, but I got to put myself, me, Jerry, and Randy. I would say we're top three. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna put myself top two. I'm always because I look at Randy. I know what he did. We've had this. Me and Randy. We've had this discussion. Randy's known for taking the top off. He has a bird. You get mossed. You know what I mean? He has all of that. I didn't necessarily do all of that. I did that and then some. You know what I mean? So, but he did it with such a flair that it's obvious. You know what I mean? People want to obviously say, okay, he's better than him but he did one thing well. Let's go deep and go get the ball at a high point. For me, I did everything. I did your short, your intermediate, and I could go deep. Nobody really knew that I could go take the top off until I went from San Fran to Philly with Donovan. And I started taking, now you're seeing me going 50, 60, 70 yards. Even in my last 2 years, I had 98 yarders or what have you, 80 plus yarders, but nobody knew I had that speed until I left San Fran. And that's not a knock on San Fran. It was basically based on what our quarterback was capable of doing. Jay, like I told you, when I explained the difference of the comparison between, Jeff Garcia and Donovan McNabb.
Yep.
With Donovan, we could be at the 2 yard line anywhere in the red zone, coming out of the red zone, and we can call a go route. With Jeff, we couldn't do that. We only went deep when we got closer to midfield, around the 40 or the 50. Now we can take some shots. But like I said, we understood we played to our strengths. And with him, we played to his strengths. But when you talk about the West Coast offense, bro, that's what I was raised in, that West Coast offense, and I took it everywhere that I went with the ability that I had. And so I was able to really, really add another element to offenses that they didn't have. And for me, what makes me so different than a lot of others, not only was I a playmaker, but I was a game changer. And that's the difference. That's the difference in some of these guys evaluating on who's better or who's greater than the other, and even the generation of receivers. You know what I mean? Just because you make a few plays here and there, now you want to put them in a category or a stratosphere of being the greatest or the greatest of all time, like, or you're top five. Like, yo, how can? No knock on OBJ. He's a playmaker. He hasn't been consistently doing what he was on trajectory to do because of injuries. That's part of the game. It plays receivers. He's a playmaker. Would I say he's a game changer? No, he hasn't been consistently making those plays to become that. That's not to say he's not a great receiver, but he hasn't reached that level of greatness.
There's levels to this. And you would know because you are part of the GOAT conversation. I appreciate you taking the time. Because right now, before I let you get out of here, there's two things I want to make sure I give you a chance to talk about. Shout Coach Prime in Colorado.
What?
You know what I mean? You there right now working with him at the practice. Tell me what you guys are doing and how nephew looking like a quarterback.
Man, let me tell you, dog. It's about to be exciting around here in Boulder, Colorado. It's not a lot of us around here, but Prime he's bringing a lot of flair. He's bringing himself to Colorado. He's bringing a different brand of football to Colorado. I don't know if they're really prepared for what they're bringing. They're starting to see snippets of it, obviously, with the press conference and things that have transpired to date. But I spoke in front of the team the other day. And for me, Prime obviously is a blessed individual, great athlete, but obviously he has a different calling on his life to where now he's a head coach. There's a lot of similarities. It's synonymous to his career. He's bringing that into the coaching ranks. I told those kids, everybody, those coaches that are there coaching them right now, everybody from a celebrity status or not, or whatever, somebody meaningful, when they walk through those doors and he presents them, they're adding value to those kids' lives as a human being, a person,
Yes.
and as a football player, whomever it may be. And they should take full advantage. Like I said, coaches, myself, me coming in, we're an extension of Coach Prime's calling. And so from what I saw, again, it's going to be really, really exciting. He's putting him, obviously, these kids in the best situation and position to be better, obviously, men in life, but obviously he's here to coach a program. He needs to, and he has to, and he will turn this program around.
Yes.
And he's bringing those necessary athletes in here to do that. And who better else to do that? And obviously, like I said, he's obviously what he's doing is bigger than bigger than just what we see on the outside looking in as football. He's setting a blueprint for other coaches of color.
Yes.
To come into these Power 5, these PWUs,
to
do what he's doing. Because we haven't, Jalen, we haven't been afforded those opportunities because they have felt that we're only good on the field. Now we're transitioning to doing some of the things, some of these PWUs off the field. And now that's the position that Prime is in. And I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. Even when he went to JSU, I told him, like, yo, we're bonded for life being Hall of Famers. And I told him, like, anything you need from me, all you gotta do is pick up a call. Just like you know what I mean? Hey,
no doubt.
You pick me up, hey, I need you to do this, you know what I mean? I got you. Just let me know. Let me check my schedule. You know what I mean? He's got a lot of things brewing. We got some stuff brewing. So
no doubt.
At the end of the day, it's all about us helping one another. And man, I can't be more proud of what he's doing. And for me, just the blessing for him to even think of me, to bring me in, to kind of just help coach some of these guys and share some words of encouragement, wisdom as to how to get to the next level. I'm always going to talk about how I got to be a Hall of Famer. And I reflected back. I reflected on that in 2016 when I first got nominated for the Hall of Fame. Jalen, I had no idea what the Hall of Fame was or about until my first nomination in 2016. After going to NFL Network, just doing like an impromptu interview once I got announced. I'm right there at LA. Chris Rowe, come down, do an interview. I got back to my condo, and all I know that interview, I'm all over the news. And then it's showing my clips. I'm like, yo, this is really big. This is bigger than I ever thought of and could imagine. And so I'm like, man, I'm sitting in my condo. I'm like, yo, we've gone through what we've talked about my career, like last 45 minutes. So I'm recollecting all of that interview and what I'm seeing on all the news channels about the possible class of 2016 Hall of Fame class at that time. I'm like, man, Jalen, I'm like, how did I get here?
No doubt.
Raised by two women. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
Coming out of high school, maybe 2 or 3-star high school, star athlete coming out of high school, going to a small school, Division I AA in UT Chattanooga. I played 2 sports there. Getting drafted, 3rd round, 89th pick. Knowing in that draft, I had 11 to 12 guys in that draft, receivers that went before me. Keyshawn was one of those. Keyshawn was one of those guys. Then, hey, I'm with the Niners. I played with the Niners for 8 years. Year and a half or so with Philly. I go to Dallas 3 years. My last 2 stints, Buffalo and Cincinnati, where they said I was too old. But I ended up going and starting and outplaying the starting receivers on both of those teams. Chad Johnson played with Carson Palmer in Cincinnati for 10 years. I come in there a month outside of training camp, go in, I'll outplay Chad. That's my homie.
No doubt.
That shows the testament of who I am and what I brought to every team and every table. So, man, it's just a blessing, man, to do what I'm doing, given the opportunity that you've given to me, and for me to be in a position to bless those kids and share my thoughts of what it takes to get to the next level, which brings to you my 3 Ds, which is desire, dedication, and discipline. Everybody watching this platform right here, they have a desire to be or do something. When you get up in the morning, you gotta have a desire to be something or to be doing what you're doing. As we're both sportsmen, as it relates to sports, you gotta dedicate yourself to the craft, and you well know in your basketball history, career, you know that there's a lot of good basketball players, but there's only a handful of great ones.
Correct.
What makes those handful of them great? That's my last D. It's discipline.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the one that we all know, love and adore, Kobe, MJ. There's something about them that makes them so vastly different than everybody else. And so for me, as I grew up, I wanted to separate myself. Elevation requires separation. I knew that I had to do something different in order to get on those levels into that stratosphere of becoming, to experience, to be considered greatness. There's great, and then there's a level of greatness that exuded, from these athletes. And for myself, I'm proud to say that I've been spoken in the same words of some of those people of greatness. And so for me, it's an honor to be here. Prime bringing me in because he saw me as a pup. He saw me growing up. He saw the trajectory. And hey, we stand on that same platform, being Hall of Famers. And like I said, it's been an honor just to come in and just coach some of these guys. I've had some of the linebackers, all these kids coming up to me, asking me, the transition from like the college to the pros, what is it like playing here? What is it like playing with this person, that person? Man, I never thought in a million years that I would be in Boulder, Colorado, in August, this time of the year.
No doubt. You're a great ambassador for all things that you do. You're a role model. You're a leader. You're a Hall of Famer, an entrepreneur. He has a restaurant coming soon.
Got it. Yeah.
Amazon doc coming soon. Give me a snapshot of what's going to happen with the restaurant.
Oh man, it's going to be a breakfast spot. Again, it's going to have a little Spanish flair to it. There's a lot of meaning behind why we're doing the restaurant as well. Just to give you a little premise of it, like when people come in, like we want to give people their flowers while they're here standing on earth. We don't want to wait till they're leaving. So that's going to be some of the dynamic of the general makeup of what the restaurant is going to be about. Just giving people their flowers as they come into the restaurant, as they experience the restaurant. We've already gone through a few of the planning phases and stages of it. It'll be in the Playa Vista area of California. If you know where Playa Vista, if you're familiar with California, you know where it is, in that Marina Del Rey area, whatever. It's prime location. Everything, like I said, there's intention is very strategic about it. But again, like I said, it'll be able to really, I can brand and kind of, incorporate some of these other business entities that I'm in. I have a wine I'm very involved with under the Tom Lasorda Family Wines label. So my wine, you like wine, go to 81vino.com. I have a candle line as well. So again, we're gonna make it sexy as well.
No doubt.
We ran into some very strategic, notable business partners as well. That obviously will be revealed a little bit later. But again, ran into this individual and she was very interested. Very interested. So again, like I said, I got my clothing line, prototype81.com. Like I said, we'll find a way to kind of maybe incorporate that. But the wine and the candles, it's gonna be perfect, to set off in there. So, like you said earlier, stay tuned. Get your popcorn.
Indeed. Get your popcorn ready. And before I let you get out of here, I have a rapid fire segment called Gone in 60 Seconds. You ready to do this?
What is it? Gone in 60 seconds?
Gone in 60 seconds. Presented by Tri-State Cadillac Dealers.
I don't know if I hate rapid fire, but let me see if I can bring something to the table.
This right in your wheelhouse. You're someone that takes training seriously. So it's only right I ask you, what artists get you hype when you're working out in the gym?
Ooh, that's a number, but 2 Chainz. I'm different.
I'm different. Yes,
I'm
I'm
different.
different. I love that.
Yeah.
Of all the arenas and stadiums you've played in, which one is the most memorable to you?
Most memorable? Ooh. Ooh. Ugh. Man, I mean, I did a lot of damage in a lot of them, dog. I did a lot of damage in a lot of them. I liked Atlanta. Going playing in Atlanta. Like I said, it's not too far from home. At one point in time, I had a house in Atlanta, so it was like I was an Atlanta native.
No
So
doubt.
to be there, but not really be from there, come back there and put on a show there when they had the great Michael Vick, and then kind of
Yes.
send them on their way.
Yes.
And I was partying with those guys during the summer.
Dope. Dope.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
it.
that. The house that Prime built, it's only right that you with him right now. If you could
Exactly.
give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh man, I wish I would have really would have listened to a lot of things that my grandmother told me. And that relates to my interaction with people, just you can't trust everybody. You know what I mean? And I did that knowing that times have changed. I couldn't live in how she lived and how she was with certain people. And I tried to kind of be a little bit lenient in that regard, and I got burned. Versus had I really listened to what she was saying, don't trust everybody, some of the things wouldn't have transpired.
Terrell Owens, I know the Colorado squad is waiting for you. I know Coach Prime is waiting for you. You got work to do to motivate and build the future. I appreciate you taking time, family, and I can't wait till we change the game doing what we gonna do. Y'all stay tuned. Get your popcorn ready. This is Terrell Owens. Appreciate you, family.
Appreciate you, dog.